The world of the British monarchy usually moves at the pace of centuries, but in the early hours of a cold Tuesday in January 2026, history was rewritten in the blink of a digital eye. Without a single press release or a fanfare of trumpets, the official royal website underwent a transformation that sent shockwaves through the Commonwealth. In the antiseptic glowing realm of the internet, two names, Archie Harrison and Lilibet Diana, simply ceased to exist in the official line of succession. It wasn't a technical glitch or a server error. It was what insiders are calling a constitutional execution. While the world slept, the House of Windsor effectively severed its ties to the California branch of the family, leaving the public to wonder what could possibly be so explosive that it warranted erasing the children of a prince from the history books. The spark that lit this royal wildfire didn't come from a courtroom or a palace balcony. Instead, it ignited in a sun-drenched room in Hollywood during a private meeting filled with the industry's most powerful media strategists. It was there that Meghan Markle allegedly uttered 12 words that would change everything. Archie has a lot more spark than George. He was meant for the limelight. To a casual observer, it sounded like the standard pride of a mother. But to the experts in that room and the spies for the palace who are always listening, it was a declaration of war. By comparing her son to the future King of England, Meghan wasn't just bragging. She was challenging the very foundation of the monarchy. She was suggesting that the throne shouldn't be a matter of birthright, but a talent contest, and that her son was winning. When the news of this comment reached London, it didn't arrive with a shout, but with a chilling, calculated silence. The palace has always valued hierarchy and destiny above all else. To suggest that Prince George, a boy being raised for the weight of a 1,000-year-old crown, was somehow lacking compared to his cousin in California was an unforgivable breach of protocol. But the palace didn't issue an angry denial. Instead, they went deeper. They looked into the files that had been kept under lock and key since 2019, files that contained the one truth the Sussexes hoped would never see the light of day. And what they found was enough to make the removal of their names from a website look like a mercy. The digital eraser was just the final act of a drama that had been building for years, rooted in a secret so deep it threatened the legal underpinnings of the entire state. For years, the public was fed a fairy tale: the 2019 birth at Portland Hospital, the beaming parents, the carefully staged photos. But behind that facade, a massive leak from the Parliamentary Office for Constitutional Integrity was about to tear the story apart. A file emerged from a fertility center in Santa Barbara dated weeks before Archie's official birth. On that document, Meghan Markle's name appeared next to a startling label: intended parent. The biological source was listed as a non-relative donor. For any other family, this would be a private medical matter. For the British royal family, it was a legal catastrophe. The British monarchy is governed by the Act of Settlement of 1701, a rigid set of laws that dictate exactly who can sit on the throne. One of the most fundamental rules is that an heir must be of the body, a biological descendant born to a royal consort. If the details in that leaked file were accurate, Archie was not born into the body of a royal consort in the United Kingdom. This wasn't just a break from tradition, it was a breach of the law that validates the entire dynasty. If the lineage was broken, the right to the throne was gone. For years, the lack of a formal public christening for the children had raised eyebrows. Now the reason seemed clear. There was no record of a baptism in the Royal Archives because the Church of England could not formally welcome a child into a succession that was legally in question. But how did this stay hidden for so long? The answer lies in what insiders call the Sandringham Gambit. Back in January 2020, during the tense summit where the terms of Megxit were negotiated, a hidden clause was allegedly buried in the final agreement, Clause 7, Paragraph 3. It was a mutual pact of silence. The Queen agreed to withhold any scrutiny into the matters of lineage and birth provided that Harry and Meghan withdrew from public duties and stopped using their official titles. It was a non-disclosure agreement of historic proportions. The monarchy avoided a scandal that would have ended their reputation, and the Sussexes were allowed to move to America with their privacy intact. It was a shaky peace built on the condition that the Sussexes would stay quiet. But as we all know, quiet is the one thing the Sussexes could not do. The truce began to crumble with the Oprah interview, then the Netflix series, And finally, the release of Prince Harry's memoir, Spare. Harry's portrayal of his father as cold and his brother as a cruel adversary wasn't just a personal attack, it was an assault on the institution itself. Inside the palace, the feeling was unanimous. The gloves were off. If the Sussexes were going to use their platform to dismantle the monarchy's narrative, the crown would no longer protect theirs. The silent agreement was dead, and the king was ready to look at the evidence he had previously ignored. The final blow didn't come from a tabloid, but from a routine government audit of the sovereign grant. Investigators were looking into the finances used to renovate Frogmore Cottage when they found a trail of money that didn't make sense. Hundreds of thousands of pounds had been channeled through a shell company in Delaware called Archgenesis LLC. The payments were itemized for medical facilitation and legal agency fees during the months leading up to Archie's birth. The implication was devastating. Taxpayer money meant for the upkeep of a historic royal home had allegedly been used to fund a clandestine surrogacy operation abroad. In the eyes of Parliament, this moved the issue from a family secret to a financial crime. With the support of Princess Anne, the family's most pragmatic and iron-willed member, King Charles III, finally made his move. On January 18, 2026, he signed a new update to the letters patent. It was a masterpiece of legal precision. It stated that all rights of title and succession would be reserved strictly for those born of a lawful biological union. By adding those 3 words, he surgically and permanently removed Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession. Within 36 hours, the website was updated and the children were no longer prince or princess. It was a move that felt like justice to some and petty revenge to others. But for the palace, it was simply the law taking its course. Meghan, however, did not take this lying down. Instead of retreating, she launched a bold rebranding effort that critics called an insurgency in Kashmir. Under a new holding company titled Royal Reclamation, she began releasing products that seemed designed to troll the monarchy. There were toddler t-shirts with the slogan, "Future Monarch, Just Not Yours," and a children's book called The Little Lionheart. The story followed a young boy in the shadows while a lesser boy was crowned by an envious court. It was a thinly veiled attack on Prince George, portraying him as the recipient of a stolen birthright. This was the moment Princess Catherine decided she had seen enough. Known for her keep calm and carry out approach, Catherine had always avoided public conflict. But the attack on her son's legitimacy was a bridge too far. During a charity event in Leeds, she made a silent but seismic statement. She appeared wearing the Jubilee Star brooch, a precious artifact that belonged to Queen Elizabeth II and is reserved only for the direct line of succession. She didn't have to say a word. The brooch told the world that the crown had already made its choice. In a later interview, Catherine remarked that while every child deserves love, not every child is called to lead. It was a subtle, stony-faced dismissal of the Sussex insurgency. Just when the world thought the battle had reached its peak, the monarchy played its final unbeatable card, a message from the dead. In February 2026, the Royal Archives at Windsor opened a private letter sealed by Queen Elizabeth II before her passing. The envelope was marked with 5 words in her own handwriting, "To be opened when tested." In the letter, the late Queen expressed her absolute trust in William and Catherine and stated clearly that undeserved titles are no longer owed. She had seen the trajectory of the conflict long before it exploded and gave her blessing for the succession to be narrowed. It was the ultimate endorsement of Charles's decision delivered from beyond the grave. The letter acted like an earthquake, shifting the ground beneath the Sussexes' feet. With the late Queen's final wishes now public, the argument for Archie and Lilibet's titles effectively vanished. The monarchy, an institution built on the weight of tradition and the importance of duty, had proven that it would always protect its own future, even at the cost of its own blood. As the dust settles, the names on the website remain absent, a permanent reminder that in the world of the Windsors, legitimacy isn't something you can brand or market, it's something you must protect with your life. The story of the secret file and the erased names isn't just about a family feud. It's about the survival of a crown that has outlasted empires. It reminds us that behind the glamour and the jewelry, there is a cold, hard legal machine that doesn't care about spark or celebrity. It only cares about the line of succession. And as Catherine showed the world that path isn't awarded by drama, it is carved by service. Meghan Markle tried to change royal history, but in the end, the history books are written by those who stay to do the work. The question remains, was the pursuit of the limelight worth the loss of a birthright? The fallout from the letter from the grave was not merely emotional, it was a geopolitical earthquake that forced every member of the Commonwealth to take a side. While the public obsessed over the drama, the real battle shifted into the mahogany-lined rooms of London's top legal firms. Prince Harry, reportedly blindsided by the revelation of his grandmother's secret instructions, was said to be in a state of absolute disbelief. Sources close to the Duke suggest he felt the letter was a strategic forgery, a final palace hit job designed to bury his children's legacy forever. But the forensic evidence was undeniable. The wax seal, the specific weight of the parchment, and the unmistakable elegant script of Elizabeth II stood as an immovable wall against the Sussexes' claims. In California, the atmosphere at the Montecito mansion was described as siege-like. The bold branding of royal reclamation, which had started as an offensive maneuver, was now being forced into a defensive retreat. Legal teams for the crown began issuing cease and desist orders against the use of royal motifs in Meghan's merchandise. The argument was simple but devastating. If the children were no longer legally part of the line of succession, any commercial use of their royal status was a violation of the Trademarks Act. It was a financial strangulation that hit the Sussexes where it hurt most. The insurgency in Kashmir was being bled dry by the very institution it sought to disrupt. But the most fascinating development was the Princess Anne effect. While Charles and William remained the faces of the official response, it was the Princess Royal who was the architect of the endgame. Anne has always been the keeper of the family's secrets and the enforcer of its rules. Behind closed doors, she allegedly presented Harry with a choice that was as cold as a Highland winter. She offered him a path back to a quiet private life in the UK provided he signed a full renunciation of his children's titles and ceased all media projects. Harry's response was reportedly a single heated word that ended the meeting in seconds. It was the moment the bridge was not just burned, but demolished. As the legal walls closed, Meghan attempted one last, desperate gambit, a live, unscripted town hall-style interview on a major streaming platform. The goal was to bypass the filtered media and speak directly to the people. She planned to frame the removal of Archie and Lilibet as a human rights issue, a case of ancestral theft. But the timing could not have been worse. Just hours before the stream was set to go live, a new batch of documents surfaced, this time from the UK Home Office. These documents detailed the specific security costs for the Sussexes' private trips since 2020, revealing that millions of pounds in public funds had been spent on non-official protection. The public mood, already soured by the cost of living crisis, turned radioactive. The narrative shifted from family feud to taxpayer exploitation. The live stream was canceled at the last minute, cited as a technical failure. But industry insiders knew the truth: the Sussex brand had become too toxic for even the most daring advertisers. The court of public opinion that Meghan had relied on for years was now issuing a unanimous verdict of guilty. Even her staunchest allies in Hollywood began to drift away, realizing that being associated with a failed monarchy was a career ender in a town that values winners above all else. Meanwhile, back in London, Princess Catherine was being hailed as the silent savior of the Windsor brand. Her strategy of sublime normalcy was working perfectly. While the Sussexes were embroiled in lawsuits and shell companies, Catherine was seen taking Prince George to a local football match, buying him a standard meat pie, and sitting in the rain like any other mother. These images, captured by fans on their phones rather than professional photographers, did more to solidify George's legitimacy than any official proclamation ever could. It was the ultimate contrast, the Hollywood prince versus the people's king. The contrast was further sharpened when Catherine launched a new initiative titled The Foundation of Truth, aimed at transparency in historical records and heritage. It was a direct yet polite middle finger to the royal reclamation campaign. By focusing on the truth of the lineage, she was subtly reminding the world that George's place was earned through transparency and duty, while Archie's origins remained shrouded in Delaware shell companies and fertility clinic NDAs. The messaging was flawless, and the British public ate it up. For the first time in years, the monarchy's approval rating soared past 80%. But what of Prince William? Throughout this entire ordeal, the Prince of Wales had remained largely in the shadows, allowing his father and his wife to take the lead. However, a leaked transcript of a private meeting with the Privy Council revealed a man who had finally lost his patience. William allegedly told the council, "My brother is no longer a factor in the future of this country. We are building for the next century, and that century begins with George, Charlotte, and Louis. Everything else is just noise." It was a cold clinical dismissal that signaled the total excision of Harry from the future firm. As we move toward the middle of 2026, the silence from Montecito has become deafening. The website remains unchanged, the names of the Sussex children relegated to the minor members section far below the official line. The secret file that started it all is now part of the permanent legal record of the UKA constitutional artifact that will be studied by historians for generations. It stands as a warning to any who would try to treat the British crown as a lifestyle brand. The final chapter of this saga isn't being written in the press, but in the quiet, steady rhythm of the royal family's daily duties. King Charles, despite his health challenges, has found a renewed sense of purpose in cleaning the house. He knows that his legacy depends on the stability he leaves for William. By resolving the Sussex issue with such finality, he has cleared the path for his son to take the throne without the baggage of a contested succession. It was a brutal process. Yes, but in the eyes of the Windsors, the survival of the crown justifies any means. The world may never know the full extent of what was contained in that Santa Barbara clinic file or what exactly Harry said to Anne during that final icy hour at Gatcombe Park. But the results are visible for all to see. The line of succession is clear, the titles are secure, and the monarchy has proven once again that it is a predator, not prey. It doesn't fight for legitimacy in the mud of a tabloid battle. It simply exists, protected by the ironclad walls of tradition and the silent, overwhelming power of the law. As we close this chapter on the War of the Windsors, one thing is certain: Meghan Markle's attempt to rewrite the rules of the oldest game in the world failed. She thought she was playing a game of PR, but she was actually in a game of survival. And in the Game of Thrones, you either serve the institution or you are erased by it. Archie and Lilibet may grow up with the stories of their lost birthright, but the crown they were once promised is now a ghost, a digital phantom on a website that has moved on without them. The future monarch t-shirts have been marked down to clear, and the little lion heart has been pulped. The crown does not compete. It only continues. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the most explosive constitutional crisis of the modern era. The story is far from over, but for now, the silence from the palace is the most powerful message of all. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Was the king right to protect the lineage at all costs, or did the palace go too far in erasing the Sussex children? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more untold stories from behind the palace walls. Goodbye for now.